I just want to do God's will.
The kind of revolution that the world needs is a Christian revolution.
If you want a miracle, you've got to expect it to happen.
You are the recipients of God's grace and God's blessings, and you rejoice in that reality.
Welcome to Life Today Live. We are at number 9 on our top 13 for 2025. And this is a topic, man, that it's really, I mean, it's always an issue, I think, with each one of us, but it seems like, generationally, some issues kind of rise to the top. And right now in our culture, identity is a big issue, especially in, the younger generations who are trying to figure things out. And that's the case to a degree with our guest today, Jinger, Duggar Vuolo, of the Duggar fame, the Duggar family fame, the reality TV stars. Do I use that word? But if you have cameras following me around all the time, I will say that. But Jinger comes in. She's got a book called People Pleaser, and I know some of you can relate to that. So enjoy number 9 today, and I'll have some good references for you if you want some other interviews similar to this one, kind of same topic, after this. But right now, number 9, Jinger Duggar Vuolo on Life Today Live.
Thank you so much for having me, Randy. Yeah, it's so good to be back.
So what's interesting is, with you and your husband Jeremy, the things that you guys are doing, raising family, doing the Jinger and Jeremy podcast that you do. How come this is the direction you went? Because this is very specific, and it's also very real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a topic that I feel like so many people can relate to. And I saw it in my life throughout the years. And it wasn't until I wrote my last book that I saw throughout that book how many times I talked about people pleasing. And the wheels started to turn, and I thought, you know what? I feel like this would be a good topic to cover because I am, as I say in the beginning of the book, my confession is I am a people pleaser. And it's something that I've wrestled with. I remember early on when I was about 5, I just wanted to keep my parents happy with me. So I was more of an agreeable child, even by nature. So that was something that I saw then when I was super young. And then fast forward into my teen years where I wrestled with a mild eating disorder. So I would just try to stay skinny by eating less. And it was something that I would compare myself to all these others around me, thinking if I could gain their acceptance and approval by how I looked on the outside, that was the way to do it. And then fast forward into whenever I was early married, I saw people pleasing there where I was afraid to even share something as simple as my husband would say, where do we want to go to dinner? And I'd be like, wherever you want to go is fine, just to keep him happy with me. And not like he was going to be unhappy. He wanted to know what I thought, but I thought that was the best way to make everyone happy, just to be agreeable all the time. And then in parenting, I saw with friends, it would come up in motherhood where I was having these relationships with other moms, and they would come over and maybe my house wasn't perfect, or maybe my kids did not eat all the organic foods that their kids did. So I'd be embarrassed by that. And I think, when they come, I'm going to try to make sure I have organic strawberries instead of normal strawberries. That way they don't think less of me. And I started to see it showing up everywhere in my life. And then when I wrote my previous book, which we discussed, it was Becoming Free Indeed, talking about breaking free from the burden of the things I had grown up under. So these teachings of Bill Gothard were very heavy-handed, and I wanted to find freedom in Christ. So stepping out into that space where I was going to speak against those teachers that I saw, they taught things that were not based in the Bible. And so I thought this needs to be exposed, but I'm afraid of losing my community. Well, that was another element of people pleasing. So it just showed up in all of these periods throughout my life. And I thought, man, this needs to be covered in a book in a deeper form. And so that's why I wrote this book.
Yep. Okay. Where are you in the order of all the children? Where do you land?
I'm number 6 of the kids.
Okay. I don't even know how
6 out of 19.
I know. So I talked to a guy recently that talked about birth order, Kevin Lehman, and I don't even know how that translates in a crowd that big, but.
Oh, I know. I think there are patterns that connect. I've seen it And so we'll have like a really strong personality, and then the next one's going to be more passive.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how that works either, because I used to like think maybe it just repeats the more kids
Maybe.
you have, but it kind of gets jumbled up. We
Well,
have a good variety.
as a middle child of three, right? So I am the only middle, right? There, typically we are the peacemakers, which can be a little people pleasing at times, right? Um, and I've been, I mean, I've been that in business settings, and there's an element that's great and blessed are the peacemakers. We want to be peacemakers, and we want to please each other. I want to please my wife, of course. You want to please your boss. I mean, that's there's a level of that is healthy,
Right.
because you're
Right.
sensitive to the needs of others. How did you go identify that? Okay, there's an unhealthy side of this. How do you know the
Mhm.
difference?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Randy, because I think we see that we were designed for community. It was something that we saw in the beginning. And so God created Adam, and then he realized that, he needed there needed to be a companion for him. And we saw that, and we see it in the Trinity. We see the relationship there, and then it goes over into everyday life. But sadly, that community that we have been designed for was flawed in the fall.
Hmm.
And so since then there has been broken relationships. Things have not been as they ought to be, but it's a good thing that we want to desire community, because it is a gift from God. And we don't want everybody to not like us. It's
Right.
not a thing
Right.
where we're like, okay, I'm not going to be a people pleaser. I don't care what anybody thinks about me. So I'm just going to live my life, and who cares? No,
Hmm.
like there's a beautiful side of that where we can see how we were designed to have a relationship with God. We were designed to have a relationship with those in the church, with friends outside of that. And there is a beautiful reality there. But when we see it out of place, and when we see the flawed side show up, even in how we relate to others, in this desperate wanting to gain their approval and acceptance based upon what can I get out of you,
Mm.
then that's where we see it head down a wrong path. So whether that's in a church setting where we see the serial servers, as I call them in this book, they are the ones who are doing every single thing. They show up early at church, they set up the mics, then they help bring the stuff for the Lord's Supper. Then they're there afterwards. They're cleaning up, they're doing the counseling ministry, they're doing the Sunday school, they're playing the piano, they do all the things. But then you look at it and say, okay, well, that's not necessarily bad in of itself if it's done in the right motivation. Now, if it's done out of a motivation to say like, wow, look at that person, look at how much they're doing, then that's wrong. And oftentimes you can see like maybe their family's falling apart, maybe
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have their priorities out of order,
Hmm.
and that's just a way of coping and serving on the outside to gain approval and acceptance and to have everybody think that they're doing great. So that can happen within a church setting. That can also happen within your family setting. Like as a mom, I can try to be and do all the things for my family, and ultimately, it comes down to motivation. What is my motive? Am I seeking to love others from a place of satisfaction in who I am in Christ? I know who I am in Christ. And then from there, I can actually love and serve others in a place of not trying to gain something from them, not trying to desperately grasp at them and not let go because I need their approval so bad. That changes everything. It changes how they're going to feel loved by the Lord and by us when we're not trying to grasp at something and pull something from them that we feel like we need.
So would would you say that one of the keys to breaking free out of that people pleasing mode, and even maybe checking to say, okay, I'm not able to do this that I'm about to say, so maybe I am a people pleaser. Would it be the power to say no?
I often see that as the case. And so I think that when we are so conditioned to say yes to everything, that's something as a people pleaser, it is hard to say no.
Hmm.
So there are times and seasons where maybe we need to be poured into, and we need to accept that fact that, wow, I need to let someone serve me in this time. And as a people pleaser, that's really hard.
Yeah.
So sometimes I need to say, oh, no, I can't serve in this way. I can't lead this book club or this Bible study because I need to be poured into, or I need to pour
Mhm.
into my family. Like there are times to say no, and that's a difficult place to be. But I think that we have to see even in that, okay, why am I saying no? Because for me, there was a season where as a people pleaser, I went to isolation. So I was not going to the over serving side. I was going to the side of saying, I don't want to let you see my flaws and my weaknesses.
Mm.
So when I'm in this stage of like motherhood, I'm in the trenches, I have a newborn, I'm exhausted,
Yeah.
I don't have my hair and makeup done, my house is a little bit messy. And a college girl texts me, hey, I'm really walking through something. Can I come over and chat with you for 20 minutes? Well, I can say no in that moment out of selfishness, and the mere fact of her seeing me and my humanity in my
Yeah.
messy
Yeah.
home,
Yeah.
and I don't want her to see Cheerios dried on the floor, well, then I need to back up and say, wait, what's my motivation in saying no?
Yeah. That's a
And
good
then
point.
there's another time where I can say, oh, I'm going to like do all the things. I'm going to host all the parties. I'm going to serve in all the ways. And I'm not going to say no to that, even though I know in my heart I should,
Yeah.
because I'm neglecting things that the Lord has actually called me to on the home front, you know? So it's a tricky thing. And I think that what we can see is the motivation. Like I said, motivation is key in our heart before the Lord. I think oftentimes we're convicted of it and we know the Lord will lead us in that. When should I say no? When should I say yes? And talking to your spouse, being real and honest with yourself about the why behind what you're doing, that for me has been so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Because for so long I would just be like, oh no, I'm doing this to serve others. And then ultimately I would look back and say, that wasn't actually why I was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I really was trying to gain their acceptance and approval. So I think that it can be tricky knowing when to say yes, when to say no, but God gives clarity.
Boy, this is good. That you're right. That's one of the most balanced answers to a question I've ever heard. And that
Mm.
speaks to you having to really face this personally. This is the book People Pleaser by Ginger Duggar Vuolo. It's available now wherever you get books. And again, if this is you, yeah, you can hear she's put a lot of thought and she's dealt with this. Here's a question, and here's one thing I've dealt with because I I like to serve at a church, and I'm on a worship team. Was with my past church, same thing. And I love music. I yeah, I got over some of the stage fright, so I'm comfortable there, but I'm not like
Mm,
seeking the spotlight. But I love the worship, and then
mm,
you get like well, Easter is a great example, which in my past church was like five services. You're up there Friday,
mhm,
Saturday, Sunday. I mean, I work Monday through Friday, so I mean, there's my
mm,
weekend. And now like my wife would be like, I'm gonna have to get all the kids ready. We had four kids growing up. I
mm,
have to get them all ready, bring them to church. Now my kids are out of the house, but a lot of times they've got like a day off, so they'll want to come collect with the siblings, and we have daughters-in-law and sons-in-law and grandkids,
mm.
and when you hit like those big ones, there's part of me that kind of doesn't want to miss out on the fun of doing the worship at such a big service, Christmas or Easter, but it comes down to priority.
Mm,
And so I've said no to the big fun.
mhm,
I mean, love, those are great weekends. And you bond with the worship team and you
mhm,
see wonderful. But the priority is the family and the
mhm,
kids and the grandkids now.
mhm,
How much does priority play a role in knowing when to say yes to the things or
mhm.
to say no because it's not the priority? It's not that it's a bad thing.
That is
It's a priority.
an excellent observation. And I think that that's often overlooked because when it comes to two good things,
Yeah.
it's hard to say like, okay, what is the right answer here? Because it is that's a tricky thing. And for us who have those of us who have FOMO, we're like seriously afraid of missing out. We have the fear of missing out,
Hmm.
and we're like, oh no, what if I say no? I'm gonna regret this forever. And it is something that I think we even had a situation like that. It was in our early days of marriage, and Jeremy was pastoring a small church. That's my husband, and we were on the border of Mexico. There was just so much that constantly needed to be done. So we were in a lot of just the mundane stuff. Like Saturday night, it would be like printing out the bulletins, figuring out who's going to play piano for that day, who's going to lead worship, all the little details, because it was a small church plant. And so being in that place, they had a lot of services. And I remember one instance where it was like they had a Wednesday night prayer meeting, they had Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, they had Tuesday night Bible study. And we were involved in scheduling and like getting a lot of these things going. Jeremy was in particular, but I was, we would go along together. And it was interesting because being in that place, there was a time where it came to like where they had a Friday night prayer meeting, and it seemed like such an awesome thing. It was maybe 5 or 6 people who would get together, and they had this prayer meeting at the church, and we would go. But at some point, I told Jeremy, I was like, I feel like this is actually, it's really taking away our time together.
Yeah.
We need a couple nights where we're just at home. And I, as a people pleaser, felt bad bringing that up because it's a prayer meeting of all things, Randy. I can't say I don't want to go to a prayer meeting, but there was a Wednesday night prayer meeting that we went to, and this was Friday night. And I was like, I feel like Friday night should be pizza, a movie. Like, let's go have fun as a family. So I think, and that was prior to kids. Another thing, right? Like where you're thinking, is this really bad that I'm thinking this way? But I mentioned it to him, and he was like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you said that. He said, I want to just have this time for us to spend alone on the weekend. And me turning that down is actually like really helpful for us. So thank you for saying something. And I was like, oh, great. So we ended up just handing that off to someone else. And it was great. Like, so you have to figure out, what are your priorities? What are you going to be like sacrificing? Because there's sacrifice in life. We see that in the Christian life, laying down our lives to serve one another. So there are times where, like, my husband's really good friend, they lost their dad suddenly, and he needed a ride to the airport, and I had family in town. Well, I was thinking, okay, logistically, this might not play out so well. Maybe he should stay and spend time with us. And then, but I was like, oh my goodness, no, take him. And when I say going to the airport, it's not like a 5-minute drive. It's like an hour and a half one way, because LAX is just traffic, we live in LA.
Yeah.
So he drove him there, and I was just thinking, wow, that really was something that they needed in that moment. So there's a sacrifice where you say, okay, this is not what we planned, but this needs to happen, and we will sacrifice for that. And then there are other priorities of like, okay, we need to say no as a family, because this is not helpful for us in the season, to that prayer meeting. So it's like things like that, right? We will say yes and no to different things, but it's all, I think the Lord gives clarity when we ask him, and we need to be willing to accept that from him when he gives us that clarity, because I think it's hard. We can try to like explain it away or think, oh, it's good, so I'm just going to keep doing it no matter what my spouse thinks. So I think that those are things that we all have to pray through.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. And you're right. The good things are the hardest sometimes to choose between. I remember my previous pastor. I grew up. My dad was gone 300 days out of the year as an evangelist, and he speaks about it openly as one of his greatest regrets. And my pastor years ago, we hadn't been at the church very long, and he said, and by the way, I won't be here next week. My son is competing. I think it was a bull riding thing. That's what his son did. And he's like, and just so you know, when my family has something, I'm going to be with my family. And I just went, whoa,
Wow.
He said that in church out loud right there.
That's amazing. That is so precious. I think that speaks the volumes too, especially to kids in ministry. You can see how
Yes, it
there
does.
can quickly become a competition between ministry and family. And I think that that's something, like you said, it's tough. It's tough to balance that. But when you do, like even my husband in seminary, he was so good about trying to figure out, okay, 3 years of seminary, it's a lot. There's a lot that you have to do. There's constantly something hanging over your head, an assignment that will need to be done. And some guys would just say, okay, like I'm not going to spend all that time with my family. I'm going to tell them I'm going to see them after seminary, but it doesn't pan out that well. And so Jeremy really sought, even in that time, he prayed about what should I do. So he would be at his classes in the day, like normal work hours, and then he would come home and he would spend time with us for 3, 4 hours, whatever it was when the kids were awake before they went to bed. And then he would often have to study late. And it was just how he managed his time really spoke volumes to us because, I was in the thick of it with these two little ones who were very needy all day. And I needed him and they needed him. So we'd get our windows like, okay, the kids are having like these 2 hours. I would go shopping or I would go just relax. And then we would come and spend just a couple hours together. And then sometimes it was Hebrew flashcards at night. And so there are those give and takes, right? Where it's like we can do these things together and it can also be fun. So like not having something so set in stone in your mind where you're like, okay, this is bad, this is good. Well, no, there are times to give and take, but it's also realizing, okay, we want to keep the main thing, and family needs to be that priority and focus.
Yeah. The priorities, big thing. And, you can tell those who struggle with this a lot of times because they hit burnout. They just eventually just burn out. All right. I want to ask you, lastly, about the payoff of not being a people pleaser, but I'm going to show people real quick. This is y'all's website. This is gingerandjeremy.com. And if you're listening instead of watching, Ginger is with a J, Jinger. The word and Jeremy with a Y at the end, otherwise commonspelling.com. And you can see the book there as well as follow up with our podcast and some other great resources there. But I want to leave people with a note of hope if they're struggling with this, because they're like, I can't say no to that good thing, or I can't, I just, right? Whatever it is where they're going, oh my gosh, she's reading my mail and I think I'm a people pleaser. What's been the positive benefits of identifying this in yourself, working through it, making some tough choices, confronting yourself and others in healthy ways? Where are you on the other side of it?
Oh, it's interesting. It's so interesting. I think so many people go into this saying, well, I'm not a people pleaser. And then they'll come out on the other side realizing they are. I actually put a couple assessments in the book, which I thought might be helpful. There's a bigger assessment. And then at the end of each chapter, I have a couple thought-provoking questions. And for me as a busy mom, that was something I wanted to throw in there for anyone who is in the same season as me, because you can just hang on to those little thought-provoking questions for the rest of the day. If you're just reading a chapter a day, it's great. But then I think for me, coming out on the other side of this, there has actually been a lot of realizations where I keep seeing people pleasing popping up. And so I am not here saying I'm the expert on people pleasing now because I've broken free from every bit of it. Well, no, we see that this comes up every single day for us as people pleasers. And there is hope and there is help and freedom when we realize, okay, I don't want to do these things to, like I said, suck people dry of what I feel like I need. Just stopping and thinking, okay, how am I approaching this? When I walk into a room, I'm looking at everyone there and saying, are they going to accept me? It can be in any setting, room of strangers, room of friends. And that initially, I think for me, shifting my mindset. When that thought comes up, no, I'm not going to allow that because that's not good. I want to think, how can I love and serve these people that I'm coming into this room with? So I think that shift has happened and it's been beautiful to see. I don't feel that intimidation and that fear that I did, but more so like, okay, Lord, please help me to love and serve them today and love and serve you ultimately first, because if my priority is not first towards Christ, it's not going to shine out to other people at all. So I think that's where we can set our hearts right before God and looking to him and saying, Lord, help me to find my fulfillment and satisfaction in you first. And then that allows us to serve others as Christ would have us. As he laid down his life, we can lay down our lives to serve others around us.
That is exactly the process of taking every thought captive and making it subservient to the obedience of Christ. And when you recognize that and then you do what you just did, that's exactly what we're told to do. And that's so good. So good. Thank you so much. Good to see you again. I hope you guys.
Thank you. It was great seeing you too, Randy.
As the family expands, I mean, 3's not 19, so you got a long way to go. But no, No, I wish you guys the best. And thank you for sharing. I really do appreciate that. That is number 9. You know, if that struck a chord with you, I have a couple of references for you. Look here for Amy Seifert's interview called What You're Worth to God, as well as one with Mary DeMuth called Seen and Heard, talking about identity and really just learning to believe what God says about you as opposed to what you may think about yourself or what the world will say, or other good people actually will try to force on you, because you just got to learn for yourself. That's one thing I say. You got to figure out who you are for yourself, and the best source is your Creator. Hey, tomorrow, big topic, legalism. If you grew up in church, you might know about this. And if you're new to Christianity, it's something you'll want to avoid. So join us tomorrow for number 8. And we appreciate you being here. Hit the share button. We'll see you again next time here on Life Today Live.